Hello, and welcome to the industry's first ever AIOps Summit. My name is Kieran Taylor. I lead marketing for CA Technologies' Agile Operations Solutions for monitoring and advanced analytics. We're broadcasting live from studios here in New York City, and we're really lucky to have the brightest minds in AI, machine learning, site reliability engineering, and modern monitoring, who will all share their insights as to how artificial intelligence for IT ops, or AIOps, can improve IT service delivery. AI and ML are more than buzzwords, they're of real and immediate interest. That's evidenced by the thousands of registrants we had for today's event. The interest level is unlike anything I've seen in 20 plus years. It's very, very exciting. I want to take 2 quick minutes to set up today's discussions before I introduce our keynote speaker, Tom Davenport. Gartner predicts that in 3 years' time, 40% of enterprises will be using AIOps in production. The question is, why now? Well, the chief change agent at work is digital transformation. Unpack any one of the latest apps and you'll see that they're built on web-scale technologies that are completely different animals for monitoring teams to manage. These containerized apps and microservices can produce as much as a 10x increase in monitoring metrics. More metrics? Well, that's just more alarms. These architectures produce many more alert storms that surpass the limit of any human's cognitive process. And that's where AI and ML come in. Through correlation and automation, we get faster remediation. You can find and fix your most common problems with minimal or maybe even no human intervention. So what's the hitch? Well, you've got to realize up front that you can't manage what you can't measure. Collecting and analyzing metrics and doing it at massive production scale across all the links in a digital delivery chain, that's critical to success. User experience, apps, infrastructure, and network, they all have unique perspectives to share, but it's only when they're combined that you get this completely new level of insights. And AIOps is the technology that enables you to do that. It's a new way to correlate feeds from disparate tools, employ analytics, and pattern recognition so that you can automatically deploy fixes fast. We're really lucky to have a fantastic line of experts today from academia, online commerce, financial services, as well as leaders from the site reliability engineering community. To me, all of these sessions are must-see TV. At the end of our agenda, we also have 3 quick demos of AI and ML solutions at work, solving real-world, durable problems. Some quick housekeeping items before we get started. All audience lines are muted, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. On the left-hand side of your player, beneath the live streaming media, you can see 2 items. One is Ask a Question, and the other is View Resources. Ask a Question will send us questions that we will address post-event. In the View Resources link, you can download a copy of all available slide decks for today. And if you need help at any time, visit the help desk. It's available both in the lobby, on one of those navigation pillars, or at the very bottom of your navigation bar. We really hope you watch multiple sessions today, and we've made it really easy to do so. We're going to take 2 minutes for set changes in between sessions, but otherwise, today is just one steady stream. There's no relaunch needed. Finally, we want you to be social, and so we've got a special incentive for those that tweet with our event handle, #AIOpsSummit. Since we're learning about AI today, we thought it was apropos that we offer 5 Google Home Mini speakers for participants. It's easy. All you have to do is tweet an observation or comment from one of today's sessions with #AIOpsSummit. Post-event, we'll select 5 winners and we'll DM them to drop ship the speakers. Finally, please visit the CA and Partner Solutions area at any time today. It's a virtual trade show. We've got on-demand demos, ebooks, data sheets, and experts standing by in chat to answer any questions that you might have. Now on to our main event and our keynote, from Tom Davenport. Tom is a distinguished professor of IT at Babson College. He's a fellow Red Sox fan. He teaches at Babson, Harvard, MIT Sloan, and Boston University. If you don't know, Tom's been writing about analytics and what we now call AI for over a decade. You can see him regularly in Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, Fortune Magazine, and other outlets. His books are required reading if you're interested in automating common IT tasks, and we're really lucky to have him here today. Professor Davenport, thank you very much for joining us, and we're eager to hear your insights around how AI and ML can help IT operations.
Thanks, Kieran. Happy to be here. Very exciting to be the first AIOps Summit, even though we are in New York Yankees territory. What are you going to do? So I'm going to approach this subject from a kind of a broader perspective of enterprise use of AI and kind of relate AIOps to the broader context in which AI gets used within companies. And of course, we have to first start with some definitions. There's a lot of hype around AI, a lot of inflation in the definition. I think the most important things to remember are that it's not one technology, it's a collection or a constellation of them, typically doing things that only we humans used to be able to do, things like reasoning and perception and analyzing trends and making decisions and a whole variety of tasks requiring knowledge. Of course, that definition isn't perfect because some tasks, particularly massive machine learning models, a lot of things we're doing in AIOps, responding to massive numbers of alerts and figuring out which ones make sense, never really could have been done by human brains. There's just too much data going on. And of course, there's always some debate about whether some technology should be included. In enterprise AI, some people put robotic process automation in, some don't. Scripting in AIOps, does it belong or not? Some people call autonomics AIOps, some don't. I think the most important thing is that within your organization, at least, you're kind of consistent about the way you're using the terms. So I did, with Deloitte, a survey. I helped to design and analyze a survey late last year of so-called cognitive aware managers in large organizations who have senior roles, who understand AI and what's happening within their organizations. We started with 1,500 and only ended up with 250 who met those criteria, but it's quite striking how bullish these people were about enterprise AI. 92% saying that it's an important aspect of their internal processes, almost as many, 87% saying it's going to help improve their products and services, and almost 90% think it will play a larger role in the future in shaping their company strategies. And when we segmented that population into the really heavy, aggressive users, the fast lane swimmers, if you will, they were the most positive of all, which I think bodes very well for this technology within organizations. Now, when we asked people, where are you using this technology? Our subject for today, IT, ended up being number one by a pretty substantial amount. Part of that, I'm sure, is AIOps. Maybe there's some other things that were in people's minds when they mentioned that possibility, but it is kind of leading the charge in terms of the enterprise adoption of AI. Of course, some other areas like product development and customer service and so on. But this is a big subject we're addressing today. Why so much focus on IT? Well, Karen mentioned some things about this already, but organizations today have hybrid everything. Some premise capabilities, some cloud, some multi-cloud now, some private cloud, some public cloud. All of those different environments create different and complex needs for monitoring and understanding. We get new device types all the time, more and more. We live in this bring your own device kind of world. A rapid growth in demand for just raw processing power in almost every organization today. You mentioned digital businesses, Kieran. Mm-hmm. They require 24/7 operations, or you're out of business very, very quickly. I think in the past in manufacturing we talked about the factory. Now in many cases IT operations is the factory, and you just can't survive without it operating effectively and smoothly. So I think there's not much doubt that AIOps is the way that this is all going to move, and in some ways, I suppose surprising that this is the first summit because it has a logic that's almost inescapable. So in general, in terms of what's going on in the AI focus within enterprises, TCS did a survey suggesting that most of the kind of benefits focused. The applications were IT oriented, some for cybersecurity, some for resolving employee IT problems at the service desk. Things like automated production management and purchase compliance, presumably mostly for IT equipment. CA did its own survey. 68% said they want to be able to automate the analysis of all that massive amount of data that is streaming out of these diverse IT tools that they have in place. 57% want to try to figure out what's behind all of this with root cause analysis. 53% say we want to start predicting problems and issues even before they occur across the entire IT environment. So really strong focus on IT is the message here. Back to, in general, focusing on enterprise IT, I studied with Deloitte 152 cognitive technology projects last year, and they basically fell into three categories. The biggest category, I think some of AIOps would fall into, we call it robotics and cognitive automation, where we're taking fairly routine and data-intensive administrative tasks in IT or some back office process and automating that. It's very popular, tends to be high ROI. The next category is cognitive insight, some of those predictive insights that managers in the CA survey said they wanted to see. These are typically using machine learning, and they involve granular, detailed insights from structured, typically numerical data. And then finally, there's this category of cognitive engagement, which is using mostly language, sometimes image-based technologies to really increase interaction and improve interactions with either customers or, in some cases, internal employees. Now, each of these has examples in the AIOps space. If we're talking about robotic and cognitive automation, we're thinking things like IT process orchestration, maybe the management of incidents, automated service restart, a very straightforward activity falls into this category. Then we have cognitive insights for AIOps are things like anomaly detection in either structured data or unstructured data like logs. Maybe we're starting to predict outages of servers and networks with machine learning. And then engagement, of course, is where we're using things like chatbots and intelligent agents to do internal first-line user support and eventually to move it out to customers. In many cases, I think organizations are not fully comfortable yet turning their customers over to these devices. So a lot of times they're using IT and HR problems to really get out the kinks before they bring customers online with them. So I think it's very important with AI in general and specifically with AIOps to think about this as steps toward a larger goal. And AI generally works on tasks, not entire business processes. So we start to have to think about what are the tasks that are going to get us where we ultimately want to be. So monitoring, of course, not really an AI activity, but that suggests you're starting to pay attention to all this data that is streaming out of the devices. And then the next step would probably be some sort of descriptive analytics or visualization to make sense in a human kind of way of all of that data. Then it's a fairly straightforward step to prediction to see what might happen next. Anomaly detection is when you have all that data and you start to say we can analyze trends and patterns and see what might actually be going on in it. If you can do that, then you can probably start to think about root cause analysis to get to the bottom of the problem. And then the next step is action recommendations and remediation. I think if you think of this as a step-by-step process, it's not so daunting, and the distance from one step to the next is not that great. If you were to try automated remediation without any of the other things in place, chances are pretty good you would not succeed. So there's also this general question of just how ambitious we should be with AI, and a lot of visibility of these sort of moonshot applications in the world of enterprise AI. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. Very famous one, MD Anderson Cancer Center, maybe infamous is a better term, because they wanted to use AI to basically treat and cure cancer. One of the earlier Watson projects, CEO is very much behind it. The project manager was the wife of the CEO, as it turns out. It's a family operation. $62 million spent on this thing, a lot of media stories about it, and the University of Texas, which owns MD Anderson Cancer Center, the auditors took a look at this and said, this isn't, we think, a good use of funds, because we, after 5 years or so, we haven't treated any patients with this. We haven't integrated it with our electronic health record system, and the project's been put on indefinite hold. This was for more than a year now. But at the same time, the IT organization at MD Anderson was saying, we think there's some kind of lower hanging fruit projects that aren't going to revolutionize cancer care, but are going to make things a little bit easier for everybody. Maybe things like recommending restaurants and hotels for the families of our patients, or identifying early on patients who are going to need some help paying their bills, so we can start to work out something with them. Of course, helping staff with IT problems and a kind of AIOps related issue. And those things showed improvement. I mean, again, not revolutionary, but valuable. And in this case, I think the low-hanging fruit seems to be winning out. If you think, well, they're just not sophisticated enough, take Amazon, which I think most people would say is a pretty sophisticated organization. Amazon does have some moonshots. They are, in at least one case, working somewhat well. I recently was in Seattle and went to the Amazon Go store. Everything worked for me, although they've had some teething problems with it. I'm happy to report that you still do need people in the Amazon Go store. One, to check and make sure your app actually opens the gate. Another, to check your ID if you're buying wine. Not that I was actually buying any wine. And then another, to clean up any dropped bottles of wine, which I absolutely did not do, but somebody did while I was there. Turns out robots are not that good at cleaning up spilled wine yet. But Jeff Bezos, in his 2017 letter to Amazon shareholders, said, yeah, you know, we're doing some of this stuff. We're going to try to figure out how to deliver packages with drones, which certainly seems like a moonshot. Nobody knows exactly how that's going. But he said the bulk of our work with machine learning and AI is in these other more, invisible areas, quietly but meaningfully improving our core operations. And I think that's the way to think about AI ops as well. Not one big moonshot, but a series of activities that quietly but meaningfully improve how you manage IT operations and processes. So what does that mean specifically in terms of AI ops? Well, you don't, again, you're not going to have one tool that's going to do everything for you. You're going to adopt a series of tools for specific tasks and technologies. Maybe you start with automated analysis of all of that data streaming from your IT devices rather than full-blown automation, which I'm not sure is technically possible given the range of devices and environments that organizations have these days. Full integration is probably not going to happen for a while. You can sort of move toward it slowly, declare small wins and build on those. And just in terms of the role of people, this is not probably going to lead to the totally lights out IT shop. Your goal should be to free up IT people to do more important, less structured and repetitive activities, rather than saying, we don't need humans in this process anymore. So some real life examples. You're going to hear some more about these companies today, but William Hill, I think a betting operation basically in the UK, using AI ops to analyze large volumes of digital data that's coming in from their mostly digital processes for placing bets. We don't have that in the U.S., but I sometimes wish we did. Yeah, we just seem to be moving in that direction. It also starts to look at the potential for fraud when customers are abusing games and addresses through some automated means. I don't know if it sends a shock to their computer so that they're penalized. But, and KPN, which you'll definitely hear about actually in the next session, is the Dutch telecom company using AIOps to break down silos between DevOps-oriented organizations to look at the whole process and how it's performing. They really say there's no way that we could analyze all of this data without AIOps. And I think a lot of organizations are going to come to that conclusion, and they're starting to get down to root cause analysis as well. So that following that progression I was describing earlier. So how do organizations want to go about putting these AIOps capabilities in place? In enterprise AI in general, in this Deloitte-sponsored survey, a majority of organizations said they make use of external vendors, either one primary one or a variety of vendors. A few organizations building things from scratch, and you hear more and more about open source, but I think the majority of organizations will find it difficult to get the people who have those kinds of capabilities to build everything from scratch. Now, I'll give you one example of an organization for which it seems to be working quite well. Facebook has definitely taken a do-it-yourself approach to automating IT ops. I was very impressed a couple of years ago when my co-author and I, in a book, interviewed the head of engineering, and he said, well, we go somewhere between one technician for every 25,000 to every 45,000 servers.
Staggering.
Unimaginable. They automate server failures, they remediate some problems before they get worse. Automated climate control, of course, that's a big expense at a place like Facebook. And even they automatically destroy failed disk drives. I don't know if they blow them up in the data center or what, but they do design almost everything on their own servers and racks. They build their own data centers. Now, this might make sense for you, but I think probably unless you have about 2.2 billion users, which I don't think there are too many organizations out there in that category, you probably want to take more advantage of vendor capabilities. And I think at Facebook, they think it's actually good for their employees to kind of build this stuff and be on the cutting edge. But how many organizations have that kind of internal capability? I think not very many overall. So we often, when we talk about AI, we have to address this issue of job loss. And I'm happy to say that it doesn't appear that most managers who are familiar with AI think that's going to happen. The big category in the survey, when we asked people what they thought would happen 3 years from now, the big category is augmentation. The 51% saying we think that human workers and smart machines are going to augment each other in producing new ways to get work done. Also, only a little bit for large-scale automation. That's the red 11% category. Then 5 years from now, it starts to grow. 10 years from now, 22% thought we would see large-scale automation. The augmentation percentage drops substantially down to 28%. But I think the encouraging news is that just as many, 28%, say there will be lots of new jobs from these technologies. So I think it's impossible to anticipate at this point exactly what's going to happen. But if these managers who understand what's happening in their organizations with AI think, not a huge reason for concern. I don't talk to very many organizations, and I interview a lot of companies who say they have large-scale automation plans in mind. So I think augmentation is a much more likely future. So what are the challenges that organizations face? Integration is number one. Difficult to integrate a cognitive project with existing processes and systems. And I think that really argues for this idea of buying AIOps capabilities from vendors where they're already somewhat integrated. And you see that in other areas where people say, well, I could build my own CRM related AI, or I could buy Salesforce Einstein or something. And they tend to do more of the latter. Some people thought the technologies were too expensive. I think it's important for managers to understand this stuff, and 37% said that was a barrier for their organization. About 18% said the technologies had been oversold in the marketplace, but interestingly, we had another question saying, do you think AI is overhyped or underhyped? More said underhyped than overhyped. So again, I think that bodes well for this whole area that we're talking about. Summing up, I think you maybe want to move. You probably wouldn't be listening to this webcast if you weren't interested in having your team becoming much more AIOps oriented. So what kinds of things can you do, really? I mean, you can start to understand the key use cases and benefits. And as I suggested, you might want to start with the lower hanging fruit ones, the quick win use cases that are relatively easy to implement, like alarm clustering and suppression to fend off alert fatigue, predicting your capacity needs, and so on. It's really a straightforward extension of analytics. And of course, as I suggested, it's not just an an IT thing. Your executives in IT and throughout the business need to understand how this stuff works and what the different technologies are used for and so on. So you might want to have some sort of educational effort. Data, of course, is the key ingredient for all of this. So you have to make sure that you have the right data sources and that your data quality and variety are sufficient to be able to start to do AI-oriented work. You probably want to start, unless you're Facebook, you want to start with out-of-the-box solutions. Don't waste time hiring a bunch of people to do the development for you, and then even in agile environments, it's going to take years for you to develop all this capability yourself. You can get immediate impact if you work with the external ecosystem, like a vendor. And then you want to start small but scale. Ultimately, we don't get a whole lot of productivity advances from this unless we scale up considerably. So introduce some broader use cases and different types of data, and then either customize the solutions you get, maybe build some things, buy some other things from vendors, and slowly start to think about an integrated, automated IT process. But it's a journey, and don't expect that that's going to happen overnight. On the other hand, you do want that kind of large-scale, highly productive environment to be your ultimate goal. So with that, Kieran, I'll stop pontificating. Maybe we have a minute or two for questions. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we've got a couple of minutes. I love the notion of a phased approach, to this AIOps journey. You mentioned augmentation. I've sometimes even heard that referred to as a cognitive exosuit. It's like, you're going to be able to do new things with AI. What impact will that have on org structures? Like, have you thought at all about that?
Well, I think it's early to tell. I suspect that we will have a greater need for experts who can address problems in the process. Maybe a lower need for kind of entry-level people, because a lot of the tasks that they previously did will be done by machines. Now, that always raises the question of how do you get the experts of the future if you're not hiring a whole lot of people at the entry level? So we'll have to address that issue, but I think it will mean probably higher level of skill necessary overall, and that may mean a kind of a relatively top-heavy organizational structure.
It's very exciting. Really appreciate you making the trip and sharing these insights with us. As mentioned, the conversation continues on Twitter, so use hashtag AIOps Summit. Please stay tuned for our next presentation. It's Achieving Autonomous Operations Through AI and ML. CA Technologies Group General Manager Ashok Reddy will be presenting, and to Tom's point about real use cases, Ashok will be able to step us through some of the situations he's encountered and observed in his journey with AI. Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.